Mechabellum is one of the most strategic and well-made auto battlers currently on the market, and to be honest, you need to check it out. But before we get too deep into what the game is, you do need to know that this game is still in development even though it is in full release. The reason we say that is because Mechabellum is constantly being rebalanced as well as having new units introduced to help keep the game as competitive as it possibly can be. Now, if you've played other auto battlers, you may be pretty familiar with how these type of games work, but if you haven't, what you need to know is that you will be getting resources that increase each and every turn to then buy units that will help to fight on a auto battle situation. For an example, you could buy a few sniper bots to put in your back line, that way they can slowly shoot down the heavier, tankier units, or you could put some crawlers down that will rush into the enemy lines and try to overwhelm high single target DPS units. Every unit in this game has a specific weakness as well as specific strength. That means that while you can spam a single unit out, it will not be able to handle different situations. Part of what makes Mechabellum so unique is first and foremost that it is a co-op game, meaning you can play with a friend in a 2v2 battle, in a 4-way 1v1v1v1 free-for-all battle, or in a normal 1v1 battle. And while yes, there are other co-op games out there, this has several different co-op modes to allow you to play the game the way you want to play. Mechabellum currently has over 24 different units for you to choose from, all of which also have a set number of different technologies that can be researched for that unit. For an example, just going with marksmen, also known as snipers, which is one of the most basic units, you can unlock the ability for them to have more range, or maybe fire in a shotgun kind of format so that they can handle a bigger, wider range of units that are pushing you and overwhelming their single target DPS. This is one of the things that makes the game extremely strategic, as the gameplay turns into this rock, paper, scissors style format, but is uniquely able to be overcome by not just simply building a counter unit, but instead researching different upgrades for different units so that they change what they can counter. And when you unlock an upgrade, it will unlock that upgrade for every single one of those units. So again, using the marksman for an example, if we upgrade its range, every marksman on your team will have more range. This means that your opponent can then choose a tech to counter that range, and you cannot undo that tech so that you would have more range. It kind of again turns into a different, more in-depth rock, paper, scissors style format auto battler combat game. Now, the game isn't simply just trying to choose counter units and different tech upgrades, as placement can play a critical role in your success. For an example, if you place all of your really weak units in a line up front and your opponent places one flame unit that can quickly destroy all of your front line, all of your back line will be pretty much immediately exposed. However, you could stagger all of those cheap units so that they come in waves during the battle, making it so that you constantly have some weaker units to absorb the hits for your stronger units. Now, there are a lot more strategies to this game, and I'm not going to go too in depth with those right now, as we could talk about this for hours on end. The key thing to note here is that when it comes to strategy, there is a lot of depth. In fact, I would argue there is more depth than pretty much any auto battler I've ever played. As far as some unique things that Mechabellum brings to the mix, you can expect to have unique on-use abilities, such as being able to spawn a strong melee unit called a Rhino behind enemy lines at the start of one singular battle, or maybe shooting a giant laser beam down, poisoning the ground so weaker units slowly take damage, or even spreading oil to slow them down and then having it be lit by one of your fire units. Again, there is a lot of different options here and a lot for you to customize. The best thing of all, though, is that this game will give both teams the exact same options every single time. So you'll never be able to complain that, oh no, I lost to RNG. In fact, you will only lose in this game due to you making the wrong decisions, placing units in the wrong place, or upgrading them to the wrong upgrades at the wrong time. In other words, this helps to take all of the RNG excuses out of the equation, so when you're your teammate is failing in this game, you can simply just blame your teammate for being bad at the game. It's not that they got bad RNG or they got the wrong unit upgrades by bad luck, it's simply they chose the wrong options and they were worse than their opponent. Stepping away a bit from the strategy side of this game, it's important to note that there is zero pay to win in it. This means you cannot buy special upgrades or anything like that. However, you can buy some cosmetic upgrades just to make your units look a little bit cooler. Speaking of the cool factor, for me, one of the coolest things is just the sheer size that these battles get to sometimes, as well as the sheer size and uniqueness of some of the units. For an example, they now have Titan units in the game that are giant war factories or slow-moving tanky mech units, or in another example, you could have a giant worm that is digging underground, then pops up and eats massive hordes. Overall, there is a lot of depth, a lot of strategy, and just a lot of cool factor with this game that I think many people will enjoy. Just keep in mind that there is going to be a steep learning curve as the player base isn't necessarily massive, but it is large enough that you won't have to face the best players in the world as soon as you download and get started. Right now, if you're trying to decide if this is a good game for you, the simple question is, do you like auto battlers and do you like super awesome mech graphics? If the answer to that is yes, then this is probably a game you need to try. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I'm Gameadvisor, and I'll see you in the next one.